Orwell wanted it to warn people about the dangers of totalitarianism coming even to the UK or the US. It wasn't just about Russia, but a lot of the details, like the kind of mysterious Sphinx-like quality of Big Brother, was based on Stalin. A great deal was based on reading about Russia.
Let's talk to Dorian Lynskey, the author of The Ministry of Truth, a biography of George Orwell's 1984. Morning, Dorian.
Morning.
Are you surprised about this? I mean, it is almost a cliche, is it not, that whenever we think of authoritarian states like Russia, we think of Orwell. We bring the two together. Are you surprised that maybe in Russia people are turning to Orwell?
I mean, I'm surprised. I'm not sure about the legality of it.
Yeah.
And like how they're getting hold of it, because my book about 1984 cannot be published in Russia under the current circumstances. So I thought they were rather stricter than this. But
Well,
I'm not surprised that if people can access it, that they're turning to it, because one, it originally describes largely Stalin's Russia. Two, Putin has a lot in common with that period.
yeah, and it was. I mean, there was a point at which it was quite hard to get published in this country, wasn't it? Because we were friends with Russia at the time, and I think did T.S. Eliot reject that? Was Animal Farm, wasn't it? T.S. Eliot rejected Animal Farm, so it was a fairly pertinent, poignant book at the time, wasn't it? Of course.
Yeah, and people, I mean, Orwell wanted it to warn people about the dangers of totalitarianism coming even to the UK or the US. It wasn't just about Russia, but a lot of the details, like the kind of mysterious Sphinx-like quality of Big Brother, was based on Stalin. A great deal was based on reading about Russia.
Is there a Russian view that this is also a critique of the West? That this is because you make the point that it does reference the US and Britain as well. I think the translator of the New Russian edition in 1984 says it depicts totalitarian liberalism in the West. So one of the things about this book is you can mean it whatever you want it to mean, perhaps.
Yeah, this goes back to when the book came out in 1949. Is that you had sort of you had Soviet reviewers unsure whether to completely condemn it as kind of capitalist filth, or to go, well, actually, what it's doing is critiquing the West. Of course, it is critiquing the West to some extent, but there's enough in there, despite, in some ways it's great precision. There's enough in there that all kinds of people can go, well, look, he's actually on my side. But that's a bit of a stretch
Yeah.
if you were kind of authoritarian Russian state.
But if you're a Russian who's straining under the autocracy of Putin, you think there is stuff there. I mean, is it fair to talk about Big Brother, the Russian state, the way they control information? I mean, we've spoken to Russians who fundamentally believe that Ukraine was invading them, which does sound very Orwellian, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I feel like maybe you would not have said that about Putin's Russia, say 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's become more autocratic, and then things come up like, for example, you can't use the word war. It has to be described as a police action. You can be arrested for basically stating things that are true. And so it's moved more in that direction. And I think one of the things that's very appealing about the book is not just the ideas, but this sense of paranoia and forbidden knowledge. And there's a secret diary, and there's a secret book that he has given that explains the way the world works. And sort of dissidents in the Eastern Bloc would read it back in the 1950s and be astonished that they were reading a secret book about a man who was reading a secret book about a regime which was just like the one that they lived in. And it sort of blew their minds that Orwell, who had never been to Russia or indeed Eastern Europe, understood the mindset of a totalitarian state. And I imagine Russian, even though it's not full totalitarianism there, I imagine Russian readers today are feeling some of that, in a sense, sort of secret knowledge, which is a weird thing to say about a book that has sold tens of millions of copies, but that's the feeling that it conveys.
That's so interesting. Really fascinating stuff. Dorian, thanks for joining us this morning. That's Dorian Lynskey, the author of The Ministry of Truth, a biography of George Orwell's 1984. Thinking about what it'd be like to read it in Russia, and lots of people are doing it even though they're